Hey guys, welcome back to another Vanguard video. Today we're here to talk about Nannaclir and the brand new Weaselain, as well as the one who arrived at Paradise cards. And then I'll talk about the two new Vice cards, and honestly they're pretty straightforward. I'll give my thoughts on Nannaclir at the end, but I'll be honest, it's a little bit underwhelming. I don't usually like to doom post. I think the cards that got revealed are really solid, but the numbers do look a little bit lacking, and I don't see any signs for why we got Bell and the other erratas for Stochiea. But anyways, first off, here is the starter, one who arrived at Paradise, Leucent. The usual, if you went second, draw one. Then we have the grade 1 of the Weaselain, the one who arrived at Paradise, Yotil. Doesn't do anything until it's rode upon, very similar to like Blaze Ember or the Vanguard Weaselain. So when it's rode upon by one who arrived at Paradise, Noctoran, you call this card to Rearguard Circle, Soul Charge 1. So mandatory Soul Charge, you could Soul Charge OT or Trigger, which would, be unfortunate. And then continuous Rearguard Circle if your Vanguard Stray Garden. So this procs when you have 3 one who arrived at Paradise rears on your board, which we'll look at for Nannaclir later. So basically if you have 3, 1 in Paradise, you get Stray Guard, it gets +5. So 13k booster, very nice. And then we have the grade 2, which is one who arrived at Paradise and Noctoran. So auto when it's rode upon by grade 3 Nannaclir, you may call this card to Rearguard Circle. If you called, you choose up to 1 card from your drop, put it to soul, so you're basically salvaging your soul. Right now, there's nothing that calls from soul right now from the rears that we got today. So far this doesn't do anything, but in the future it could be very strong. And then if you did not call, you draw 1. So basically you get a free 15k booster because he gains boost and +5k once you're Stray Garden for the second continuous Rearguard Circle skill. And if you didn't, you basically draw 1. So very solid Weaselain, doesn't use any cost. Anyways, that's from the Weaselain. So next up is the grade 3. So we have the one who guides towards Paradise and Nannaclir. So continuous Vanguard Circle during your turn. If you have 3 more Rearguards with one who arrived at Paradise in their card names, your world becomes Stray Garden and this unit gets triple drive. This is the easiest thing in the world. You always have Alfini and other generics to res things back from drop, and you already get 2 from your Weaselain. So really all you need is the third one, and there are a lot of one who arrived at Paradise rears, which we'll get to next. And then the second skill is the active Vanguard Circle. Once per turn, you energy blast 3. Look at the top 5 cards of your deck. You choose it to 1 card from among them. Reveal it called to Rearguard Circle if it's a unit card, and put it to your hand if it is the new order card, Abloom in Paradise, Cead Mile Failte, and then shuffle your deck. If a unit with one who arrived at Paradise and its card name was called, that unit gets +5k until end of turn. And then auto Vanguard Circle when this unit attacks. You cost counterblast 1, choose one of your Rearguards, and stand it. So for attack deck, you get crit +1 and +5k from the order, which we'll look at next. But besides that, it looks a little bit underwhelming, I'm not gonna lie. So far, none of the rears or the Van skill and the Weaselain, obviously, that we looked at does not interact with bind, so I'm not too sure why Bell got hit. This could do with the second wave support because Bushiroad does often, and the testing team didn't exactly say this in their statement, but it's pretty obvious that they are testing months in advance. You might not think that because, Vav has been around for so long, but, they do test and create cards months and months in advance. So I think that's why they hit Bell and other cards. But from the first wave of support, I can't tell why in the world they hit the Zorga order. I can get them hitting Nectar Sensationalism because if the deck was able to rapidly mill out drop too fast and you had restanding like 50, 40k bigger, rear with 2 crits and then an extra crit somehow if you're able to play a second order would be pretty insane because that would make the order specifically for Nannaclir a little bit, more obsolete. But I mean, besides that, I can't really tell. I guess they were also scared of quad drive, but Sephirgilia could also quad drive like before they made that ruling change. So I'm not really sure. I do think Nannaclir is a really good Vanguard. Counterblast 1 for the restand is kind of hard because right now the deck has no countercharge. You can play the Zorga order to sack off 2 rears countercharge. I'm forgetting the name off the top of my head right now. And there is another card that countercharges on hit if it's the third battle, which does technically work for Nannaclir. But right now there's no countercharge for the deck, and you can't really, you can use Alvina or let's say like Sea Rumbler, the energy cycler, but you can only use it once if you go first because your energy 3 every turn is going to go to Nannaclir's skill because you want to always either reveal the new order to draw 1 when you add it to your hand so you go +2, or you're just calling another free rear. So basically you're energy blasting 3 CB1 every turn, and you have enough soul through the inlet pulse that we saw in the anime, which we'll look at very soon. But yeah, honestly, I think Nannaclir is a very solid Vanguard. Doesn't have Divine Skill like we thought, does exactly what it did in the anime. I think 4 attacks is a little bit underwhelming. Like, they've given Sky Ruler and everything else 5 attacks, so maybe they'll get a rear like, I don't know, Strawberry that would restand it sounds another front rear. Just very kind of underwhelming card design for Stochiea when we have, like, when I compare this to the quote-unquote best Stochiea deck right now in the meta, Estation, very easy to use, gets easy crest power, can do 5 swings when it sons a plant token, gets crit +1, can get resist, does so many things, and steamrolls power really fast. When I look at a deck like this, nothing is really happening early game unless you maybe Alvina once and like slam a bunch of rears. But I mean, you don't really have like a Shenri or a good Stochiea dog, like a Sergeon promo in this deck. You do have the Stochiea teeth that we got from the from the Skyride manga, but besides that, there isn't really too much early game. So anyways, I'm kind of rambling on about what I think about the deck and the thoughts and weaknesses, But so far, it looks a little bit underwhelming, I'm not going to lie, compared to the other Stochiea decks we've gotten recently. But still, I think with the second wave of support, it'll be really good. But you know, you kind of have to say this every time for standard decks. So next up is the order of Abloom in Paradise, Cead Mile Failte. So play this card if you have Vanguard with Nannaclir in its card name. Perform one of the following. You choose a card with one who arrived at Paradise's card name for your drop called to Rearguard Circle. So this is basically your only drop recursion in the deck right now besides Alfini. But again, Alfini is a grade 1 or less, or a normal order. And there is actually a grade 1, which we'll look at next, which is the Lettuce, that actually does replay your normal order from drop, aka this card. But yeah, anyways, that first skill is really good. You just recur any of your one who arrived at Paradises and their on place will go off. And the second skill that you can perform is choose one of the rear guards with one who arrived at Paradise in its card name, and it gets auto rearguard circle once per turn. When this unit stands, if you roll the straight guard, this unit gets crit +1 to end of turn and power +5k. So again, you can only choose to perform one of these two effects. And then the second auto is when it's revealed from your deck and put into your hand by the ability of your card with Paradise in its card name, aka Nannaclir, then costs reveal this card from your hand, draw one. So when you add it to your hand off Nannaclir's ability, you just reveal it and draw one. So just literally +2 for E3 is pretty insane. Unfortunately, the ride line doesn't grab it, which I think is a little bit of a problem. But you have Nannaclir's check top 5, you have the new triple rare, which we'll look at soon, which CB1, so check top 7. So it's pretty hard to not find this order. But the point is that, you know, I think this card, looking at it on its own, is very strong. I do think restanding with a crit is very strong, especially with a triple drive Vanguard, because, you know, you flip one crit and automatically you have to guard both sides if you're at 4. But I think in the early game, it does look a little bit weak compared to the other Stochiea decks we have. And the res something from drop also doesn't give it power as well. I mean, all of the one in Paradise rears basically get +5 once you're on Straight Garden. So once you're on grade 3 and you have 3 one in Paradise rears. So it's not exactly too hard. I'm just surprised that the first skill for the res doesn't give any +5. Like even Levidras's order that like nobody plays did that as well. So kind of a bit strange, but yeah, you're mostly playing this for the second skill to just like give a crit, because that isn't tied to your opponent's Vanguard as well. So you can give a rear crit restanding, which is very strong, and we've seen this happen already for Ava and Astacion for decks that can spiral the game plan really fast by turn 3 and just have your opponent at high damage. So yeah, kind of just rambled on about this card, but yeah, that second auto ability just being a free draw 1 when you add it to hand off your Vanguard, basically, essentially, unless we get a different card that has, you know, card with Paradise in its card name, very solid. Just very weird that that first skill doesn't give any +5, and it's only the second one, because, you know, you need to basically already have a rear and then give it +5 and then the restand to get the crit +1. Alright, so the next card is one who arrived at Paradise, Fluttery Lettuce. Now, we did see a lot of, you know, generic Stochiea, specifically from the episode, like we saw Alvilna, Vajarma, the list goes on and on. I do think you might still want to play Coutier because, again, your ride line doesn't find it, but, you know, I'll wait for JP to cook. I'm not really a Stochiea chef. But anyways, this card lets you replay the card from drop. It has the first act, the act in Rearguard Circle, to cost retire this unit, so it needs to be on rear. You choose an Abloom in Paradise, Cead Mile Failte from your drop, and if you do, it gets continuous. This card can be played from drop. If you would, when it would be put into drop after playing it, put on the bottom of your deck instead until end of turn. So while you do kind of maybe want to play Coutier for consistency, just because it's deck then 1, this does have anti-synergy with Coutier, and they did word it that way, so it would go back to deck. I mean, technically, Coutier, it's not really anti-synergy because you can grab it back and just mill it back from deck off Coutier afterwards and do it again. But this basically is here, so you don't basically have to buy Coutier, and it's another basically replayable of the order once you play it normally from hand and it stays in drop, and then you return it back to deck after playing it. The second skill is the auto back row rearguard circle once per turn. When your unit in the same column as this unit stands by a card ability, if you roll to Straight Garden, stand this unit. So I think back row restander is really good. Surprisingly, this does not get +5 just for existing, which is strange. Maybe you want to res this off the order, but like even if you do, because of the way of the wording for the first skill, you know, if you do res from drop, it doesn't get the +5. So it is basically here just to supplement numbers. So your numbers are basically hitting like 38 with, let's say, like the dragon, or like 33. So not exactly the craziest numbers. I do think a back row restand is mad value, especially if the deck does get the 5th restand in the future. Again, right now it just looks like a 4 attack deck. But yeah, so far, you know, I think this card, I see what they were going for with this card. Like, it's supposed to be basically a replacement for Coutier, but, you know, people might just end up playing Coutier. Like, people were doubting Avarice Rester and, like, Toys, and that just ended up being the staple because it's just so consistent and easy to do. So I think with Fluttery Lettuce, do let me know, Stochiea mains, what you think of this compared to Coutier. If anyone has already play tested the deck. I mean, we literally just got the reveals today. But I mean, in terms of my thoughts on this card, I think it's a solid card. Back row restand is really good. But again, you're only doing really one restand in the same column, unless, you know, Vanguard somehow gets a restored ability because it says unit instead of rear. But anyways, I'm rambling on about the potential of this card, but I do think it's pretty solid. I was surprised this thing's a common, but I mean, solid card all around. Alright, so the next card is the Inlet Pulse clone. Yes, we have another Inlet Pulse in Stochiea. What a surprise. The one who arrived at Paradise, Weaselain. It's a high beast, so continuous Rearguard Circle and Guardian Circle. If you have a Grade 3 Greater Vanguard with Nannaclir in its card name, and your world is Stray Guardian, this unit gets plus 5k, so basically during your turn. If you have 3, one in Paradise, or one who arrived at Paradise, it gets plus 5, so it's a 15k beater. Then if you have a Grade 3 Greater Vanguard with Nannaclir in its card name, and your world is not Stray Guardian, it gets shield plus 5. Basically, if it's not your turn, it gets shield plus 5, so when you would guard with it, I don't know why they made it this wording, or just like have it just gain shield during your turn, or just make it like both conditions. I don't know. Really weird wording. I don't know why they decide to word it that way, but like just to point that out, it's really strange. And then auto Rearguard Circle at the end of your turn. If your world is Stray Guardian cost, put this unit to soul, draw 1. So easy soul. You can always shove this anywhere in the back row if you need it just for more soul, just to farm hand. So easiest Inlet Pulse in the world. Probably what you're resing, because this is super easy to soul blast and get back off the order. But I feel like because this deck doesn't have a way to play 2 or more orders, or at least normal orders in the same turn, I feel like you always want to play the flower order, the Stray Guardian order, to just get the crit on rear anyways every turn, especially because you want to like have that crit pressure. And this is already going to be drawing you cards, plus you have triple drive. So I think just, as a rear, it's not really impressive. Like 15 is like you get 20 from the order if you res it, like if you want to do a low commit push turn instead of getting that crit, which I think is pretty understandable when you go first. But once you're in like your persona turns or whatever in the later game, you want to have that crit pressure, especially when you have 3 drives. So not too much else really to say about this card. It's an Inlet Pulse clone. You don't really have any soul or draw power problems. I think the problem really is just countercharge right now, because there's no easy countercharge for this deck. Probably will get it in the second wave support in set 10, who knows, but pretty solid card all around. Oh, sorry, not set 10, set 11, technically, because this is set 10. But yeah, honestly, really good card all around. I don't think there's really much else to say, except it's an Inlet Pulse and a decent beater for the deck. Alright, so the last card from Nannaclir is the one who arrived at Paradise, Leaves Feather Dragon, that we saw her use in the anime. So auto, when placed on Rearguard Circle, other than during the battle phase, you cost counterblast 1. Look at the top 3 cards of your deck, you choose up to 1 card with grade less than or equal to your Vanguard. Reveal it, call to Rearguard Circle if it's a unit card, put it into your hand if it is Abloom in Paradise, Cead Mile Failte, which is the order card, and then shuffle your deck. If your world is Stray Guardian, look at the top 7 instead of top 3, so CB1, check top 7. Again, does nothing for whiffing, so if you see 7 triggers, it does nothing. But, your chances of that happening are pretty low, and plus this can really literally tutor any rear out of your deck. So yeah, again, getting to the Stray Guardian condition is super easy. Like your ride line gives you 2 rears, and literally all you need is 1 more, and you literally like most of your deck is one who arrived in Paradise rears, because they're all really good. But yeah, honestly, solid cards. CB1 check top 7, grab your order, or any of your rear essentially is really nice. And it does not also require for the check top call. It just has to be grade less than or equal to Vanguard. So you don't even need to call one who arrived at Paradise cards. You call literally any Stochiea card from your deck as long as it's a unit card with grade less than or equal to your Vanguard. Alvina doesn't work because Alvina does have to be placed from Van, but you could call like literally any other Stoi generic that is really good. And then auto Rearguard Circle, when it attacks, if your world is Stray Guardian, you call Soul Blast 1, it gets plus 10. So this is your way to get the Inlet Pulse grade 2, the double rare that we just looked at, out of Soul. And basically just, your way of fueling Soul. An easy plus 10 also isn't locked to either your opponent's grade 3 or greater, so you can use this easily going first. So again, best beater of the deck is your CB Burning besides Vanguard to, fill up your board and find the orders. So, okay, I'll do a quick wrap of Nannaclir. I think I've already talked and yapped enough. The recording is 15 minutes? Jeez, and I still have to talk about the Vice cards. But basically, in conclusion, to talk about the Nannaclir cards, I think the deck honestly does look good. Just from a first wave of support, the numbers are honestly a little bit lacking. Like, even when I look at Skyruler, their numbers look a little bit better, I'm not gonna lie. And I think Astashion just has, it does have big weaknesses in which, like, it gets hard countered by things that attack the Blast token. But I mean, in terms of like matchup wise, like if Astashion doesn't, run into those bad matchups, and JP is also a team format as well, and so is BSF. Astashion steamrolls decks really hard. I'm also aware Astashion is not legal for a lot of BSF, or at least like literally most of them, because it comes out end of August. But what I'm trying to say is Astashion has a lot less weaknesses in terms of just aggression and resources, and it can easily play that long game and end games really fast on turn 3 and 4, because it's like tri-laning you every turn, and with the Blast Token Crest effect, you're hitting like basically 25k if you get the 3 every turn to your front row, hitting like pretty ridiculous numbers. And you still have Coutier and other tools, of course, that you can play. But I think Astashion just looks a lot more solid in terms of like consistency compared to this deck, because you do have a lot of problems in terms of CB, and like your numbers aren't exactly the best, I think, compared to modern Divine Z decks. Like, for a first wave of, like, it's not a Destined or, Divine or Fated one deck, but, for the first wave of support, I was really expecting a lot more, and I felt like it's a little bit lackluster, to be honest. If you're a big fan of Nannaclir, I think this deck is still really fun. I think the deck will be competitive once it gets a second wave of support, but just looking at the first wave, it's kind of eh. I think the Stochiea generics will definitely push it to a point where it is competitive and playable and can definitely win a local or a tournament. It's just, from first impressions, the deck is not very impressive at all, to be honest. Again, I think the CC problem is a big thing. You can't play the Zorga order. I'm forgetting the name right now. Retire something, countercharge one, shut the soul. But then if you're playing that for turn, you're not playing your Mile Failte. You're not playing the Flower order. The one that you're supposed to be playing every turn according to this card's deck design. And again, it's still really weird because nothing here uses bind at all. So I'm not sure why Bell got hit in standard. I'm not sure, why Zorga orders were hit. You could still technically play Zorga and Weaselain and just hard ride Nannaclir and still play Nectar Sensationalism and give something 25k in a crit or however many cards you have drop and then still cheese your opponent with 4 swings. You could still do that. So really, really weird. I'm not a Stochiea fan, but I do think this deck is, interesting enough to, like, new players or, like, novice players where, like, it would bring something new. But I think in terms of what it's bringing new to standard, it's not really bringing anything new. It's really just another flavor of triple drive, 4th attack. Doesn't even do 5 attacks, and it does do a lot of deck thinning, but a lot of Stochiea decks such as Stochiea and, Toys and a lot of other, like, competitive decks are still deck thinning very fast and getting a lot of other things as well. Really, you're just working hard in this deck to get triple drive and a 4th attack with a crit. And that's usually not enough to end games against decks that farm a lot of hand really fast or are completely blowing you up, in which you have to play the catch-up game and your numbers aren't impressive enough. So yeah, those are my thoughts as someone who plays standard probably a little bit too much. But anyways, moving on to the Vice cards. Alright, I say moving on to the Vice cards, but there's really only 2. So we have Alfini Svatbagi, and this is the card that we got from the anime that, that was damaged by Kagetsu, but he didn't actually get to use it. So, but I mean, honestly, this card is really, really good. So this card can be played from drop, and it's actually costless. Thank goodness. All the Vice mains saw this and were like, thank goodness this thing doesn't cost a CB. And play this card if you grade through grader with Vice Ruger's card name and your opponent's Vanguard's grade through grader. So unfortunately, you can't use it first. You would still have to play the CB one, both all your other orders for the other one. If you want to play an order going first, you bind this card, choose one of your Vanguards, gets a continuous Vanguard circle. All of your Ruger's with Mythics get +5 until end of turn. So it's not as big as a buff as the first order we got that you play for CB1, and also buffs, Mythics placed by card effects by +5. But I think this card is amazing just because it's costless. And of course, the new Mythics can tutor it out from deck and play it. So it does kind of suck that it basically removes itself from game by, like, binding it because, Brandgate doesn't really have a way to empty its bind. Your standard is really weird at doing this kind of card design. But basically the point is you can't replay it again because it goes to bind and it goes poof for playing it once. But it's free. It doesn't use any CB, and instead you can use your CB for the snake and other things. So I think this card is still a really solid upgrade for the deck. I think it's a bit strange that this is the only one that can be played from drop, but the new Mythics tutors from deck anyways and adds it to your hand. So I think this is just a really good card that you're going to want to play a few of for sure, if not 4, because it's easy pitch fodder and it's just your best turn 3 play order to save you resources once you go second or on your second Persona Ride turn 4. So, sorry, not your second, your 4th turn going first, when you're both you and your opponent are on grade 3 Vanguard. But yeah, honestly, really, really great card for Vice. Probably one of the best cards that Vice has gotten so far for sure. Alright, so the next card is the 3rd Mythisch itself, which we saw what it does in the anime. It's basically Mime plus Pantera, spoilers. So when it's placed on Rearguard Circle, other than during the battle phase, choose a grade 3 with Vice Ruger in its card name. For your ride deck, reveal it. If either you revealed or your grade 3 greater Vanguard with Vice Ruger in its card name, you perform one of the following and then shuffle your deck. You look at the top 5 cards of your deck, choose it to one of either a Vice Ruger card in its card name. So this could include a potentially grade 4 in the future, even though that probably won't happen, but maybe. Or your Persona Ride, your grade 3. Or a Lunarite card from Abloom, reveal it, add it to your hand. So you basically get to add either an order card or a Persona Ride. So if you're already in a really good position, you don't really need to build up certain pieces such as your order card or more Mythics, because you have enough Mythics anyways from your Moongate. Then you can use this in check top 5. And of course, there's also your shotgun for Persona in case you are very desperate and you don't have one in hand. Also really nice that it's costless as well because of the wording of the first effect. So technically the first skill, the check top 5, is costless. You just have to place them other than during the battle phase. Although Rearguard Circle, at the end of the battle that this unit attacks, if you have a grade 3 or greater Vanguard with Vice Ruger in its card name, you put this unit into your soul and countercharge 1. So honestly, amazing card. There's not much to say. It's Bulba Mine. It gets you soul countercharge, exactly what the deck needed. I know a lot of people were joking about this, but I'm really not surprised that he's literally just Bulba Mine. The Pantera effect is really good. Unfortunately, it's only usable if you Persona Road. Kagetsu did go first, so we did know he was using this on his Persona Road, on his Persona Ride turn. But I'm a little bit disappointed that that restriction is there, because basically you still have to, not that it's hard because you're playing so many orders, but you basically can't, guarantee an order play out of your deck. So deck then 1 and play a Lunarite order on turn 3, because you have to Persona Ride for that skill. So, I'm still a little bit frustrated over the design of the Mythics. I feel like every time I see a Mythics card, it's like 2 steps forward, 1 step back. So like in total, when the deck has gotten all of its Mythics and it's supposed to be cohesive at this point, it still feels like Bushiroad didn't really know what they were doing when they were designing this deck, honestly. But I do think this is, an amazing upgrade for Weisruger fans, like a definite 4-off. The fact that you can tutor this, call this during battle phase. Nothing is really, I guess the on place is battle phase locked, but, besides that, the Bulba Mine section isn't once per turn to just shove the soul countercharge, so you have plenty of countercharge and soul to work with. I don't think you really need to play soul in fronts anymore, but maybe you do. Again, I haven't tested. We literally just got this revealed today. But yeah, honestly, the check top 5 is really good. This is also really easy to slam early game as well, and if it dies, you can always put it back to deck and shuffle your deck and probably get it back off the Moongate effects, because it is a Mythic. But I mean, that on place check top 5, grab a Persona Ride early or Lunarite card is really, really nice. And thank goodness it doesn't have like a cost tied to the first on place, because then otherwise you would, like, for example, spend like a Soul Blast or Counterblast, whatever the cost would be, to check top 5 and then whiff and then cry because you somehow didn't find a Weisruger or an order card. But yeah, I think enough has really been said about this card. I don't really feel like there's anything new for me to say. I think this does patch up a lot of the weaknesses of the deck, and the 2 big ones, which was not finding Persona Ride or not finding an order or not having enough soul or countercharge. So like the deck just had so many problems before, and this feels like their emergency patch to fix most of them. I do think the deck would have really liked a grade 4 or a new form, but I think that would have been them just pumping out power creep too fast. But I mean, I think Weisruger is definitely a lot more of a cohesive deck now, has a lot less weaknesses, and the fact that this is early game, again, easy to grab Persona Ride and Lunarite cards is really, really, really good, because there's no energy tied to that first effect if you want to choose the first one of performing one of the following. And then again, later on turn 3, it's just easy Bulba Mine, put the soul countercharge. So yeah, those are my thoughts on the deck. Oh, there's also a random Morfonica card that we got revealed. We got Feathered Dreams Bang Dream Morfonica music card. When put on Rear Guard Circle, you look at top 5, choose the one Morfonica among them, reveal, put into your hand. I think Daylight's still a little bit better because it gives +5 to your Vanguard, but random promo card they released with the new Morfonica single on 27th of August. Next week, we are getting Jejuled, the man himself. We're going to finally see Jejuled destroy Bav, and hopefully that will be really hype. The episode is actually this Friday, but the actual reveals for the cards are on Tuesday. And then on Thursday, we're getting Azida Haka and Dragon Ein. We'll definitely be making a video for that. That better be insane. I better see brawlers. I better see some broken collab stuff so people can complain about the Buddy Fight collab. But anyways, so yeah, those were my thoughts on the deck. I think Nannaclir is very straightforward, has the obvious weaknesses, a little bit underwhelming for a Stochiea deck, but I think we'll get a lot better as time goes on and it gets more waves of support. Triple Drive isn't bad. Nothing the Vanguard does is bad at all. There's no obvious weaknesses except I guess getting CB denied. So if you don't have a single CB, you don't have countercharge stand for the 4th attack. So the deck probably needs to play Caliburn. In terms of Vice, I think that deck still has to play, every Mythics and Lunarite order imaginable. I think you could probably cut the Snake one now or the one that gives, not resist. It's the second order that they got. Because you're probably still playing the first and the third one just for power, and this third one is really good. It's just free, basically. And you do have more deck thinning now with this third Mythic on top of your Moongate and everything else, so I hope the deck will feel a lot better for Vice mains once they proxy playtest that and once it comes out in JP. I still don't know if it'll be a quote-unquote good deck in terms of Vice has been playable, but I'm not sure if it's really a great deck. But anyways, I'd be yapping too much. This recording is almost 30 seconds, or not 30 seconds, 30 minutes. But yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you Thursday for the Dragon Ein video, I guess.